Well, we got a
Just
great show today for you guys. We got William Steele from Inmates to Roommates, and he just got him while he was involved in a movie called Silent Partners, which is a true story about the mafia and all the dirty stuff that they did. So we'll get into that. Zandine's mother, a very prestigious woman, it was her birthday today. Zandine, you want to tell a little bit about your mom?
yeah, rest in peace. It's a birthday today. I appreciate that, Paul. Actually, yeah, she worked for the SFPD for 40 years, and she was under Kamala, every other DA that came through there, but she was the one that would go in the street, in the projects. She could go around, so she would tell me like who's who. So I used to ask her about Kamala, and she, was like maybe 60-40 on her, you know. But she knew, she worked with her implicitly for like all the time that she was there. But yeah, rest in peace to my mother. She beautiful woman. Had me at 14, did it on her own, you know what I mean? Put me through school. So uh, that's so.
Sounds like a fantastic mother. She did a lot of heroic things. So
An
God bless.
accomplished
Oh,
woman.
she pulled guns on people before the police happened. I mean, we lived in the projects. It was this 23-year-old dude. He punched me in the chest. I was like 9 years old. And I like, man, I want to do something, but I had like a little crocodile tear. My mother said, "What's going on?" I was like, "Nothing." She said, "What happened?" She just put on a trench coat. All she had was like her underwear. She went down there, and we saw the dude, this guy, Anthony Sharp. We're friends to this day, but she said, "Yeah, you got a problem with my son?" And he's like, and with the right language, she said, "Who are you, bitch?" Like that. She said, "Excuse me," and she was like that. She said, "Get on your knees right now and say you're sorry." And he looked around, and everybody was on the rafters, second floors, and he got down and said sorry. After that, he used to carry her groceries, call her by her last name, everything. But she was like, "No, you don't have to do that." She said, "But next time I have a little bit more respect." And she was only like 5'1".
Strong
So
woman. Strong person.
your mom was a San Francisco police officer then, right?
Oh yeah, that came later. Cause
Oh,
she
okay.
actually yeah, that came later. She started when I like in the 70s. She was Officers for Justice, WayPack, any organization you think of that came through. 850 Bryant. She's based out of 850 Bryant for 30 years. Moved around and then came back. So, but a total of like 40 years.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
But hey, but thank you. I really appreciate that, man. It helps me get it off.
Right on, Zandy. God bless her. Anyway, on today's segment, well, if we have time, we're going to go over some news items. There's a lot of news items. We're going to talk to William Steele. And William Steele, when we're talking about news items, you can jump right in too, because you probably have a lot of knowledge about some of the things I'll be talking about. Some of the things that on the news today. Okay, are we getting close to World War III? We got the Ukrainian soldiers, their excursion into Russian territory, so it's getting kind of shaky. Scott Peterson says he's innocent, that he didn't kill his wife and child, which I think is just total bullshit. Um, they found a 52,000-year-old woolly mammoth hide, and some scientists are talking about bringing back the woolly mammoth. So through DNA. And talking about DNA, they caught the Lake Elsinore killer or the Riverside prostitute killer by DNA. DNA is catching all these killers from our past. And the killer is William Lester Sufft. So he killed something like 13 women. And and he was a free man. He was just out there doing his own thing. That DNA brought him to justice. The actor Gabriel Olds, the DNA has proven that he was involved with 3 sexual assaults. Now he's in big trouble. Um, Derek Chauvin, the guy
Yeah.
who placed his knee on,
Yeah.
Floyd George's neck and killed him, he was stabbed in prison 22 times. He survived, but boy, he's living a rough life, and they had to transfer him from one prison to another prison. Stonehenge, they found a 6-ton altar stone that came from Scotland. How did it get all the way from Scotland to England? Beats the hell out of me. Um, Victoria Lee is an Asian American, and she had mental illness. So her family called the police. They just wanted the police to mellow her out and calm her down. She was holding a water bottle. The police broke into her apartment and shot her dead. Her family is pissed because they killed this woman, and all she was doing was holding a water bottle, and she's mentally ill. They found vast reservoirs of water was found on Mars. So at some point in time, maybe in the future, we can terraform Mars and live on Mars. So that's about all the news items that I have. Oh, sloth fever. Sloth fever is coming from the Caribbean and Cuba and Brazil and going into Europe. It's a very deadly virus and has already killed a few people. So we'll get into those news items if we have time. But right now, we're going to talk to William Still. William, I heard that you're involved in a movie it's called Silent Partners. Can you tell us about it?
Silent Partners is a picture of Miami Vice, 1980s era, set in Miami, mafia genre, and it's a very exciting movie based loosely upon the true story of Fat Dave Iacobetti. He was a Gambino captain. His son, Dave, who's a dear friend of mine, wrote a book called Fat Dave. So check out the book, check out the movie. Anyway, that movie will be airing. They're going to the premiere here. I just got the Boca Raton, Florida, and the premiere is here on the 23rd of August, so in a few days. And then it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to hit theaters briefly, but it's going to go streaming. And then we're rolling into 3 other movies, then a drama series, a movie about my life. So
they're going to make a movie about your life?
Yeah, we already have screenplay and a lot of interest in it and getting it together. So,
Sandy, you may not be familiar with William Still, but he's got a couple books out there. He was a good friend to a serial killer, a multi-millionaire serial killer named Durst. Can you tell us about that? What?
Right. So just to give your audience a little more background about me. So I grew up in New York City, and my mother was mentally ill, and I was always this guy defending, her from bullies and people that would pick on her. So I, like everybody else, wanted to be successful, and I got into real estate, and I also wanted to be a James Bond type guy, being able to get in and out of things, but like work for the CIA.
Yeah.
So there was a school in New York City, the National School of Locksmithing, Safes, and Alarms. I went, attended it, graduated, and I started getting around a lot of people that were wanting to put me on scores, to use my skills to break into things. And a friend died in a car crash, and I made a mistake of starting to self-medicate, And so I don't drink, but I got it over my head with the other stuff. And I started using my skills to commit multi-million-dollar jewel and art heists all over the country. During that period, I met a lot of very, very affluent people all over the country, from Laguna Beach to Manhattan, New York City, where I'm from, to down here in South Florida, and one of those people I met in the course of just normal day activity was Robert Durst, the wealthiest serial killer in American history. Now, he has killed numerous people. I wrote my book about my time with him, and the fact that it seemed like I was like 20 something years old at the time. He was probably about 40. And I was kind of using him for his money because I was at the time selling coke and doing some other illegal things. And he needed places to hang out with these various women that he didn't want to be seen with and get high. And what I come to find out later was really doing a lot of things that I wasn't into, with these chicks. And then evidently start killing them. So he killed his wife. He killed a friend of ours, Susan Berman. Susan Berman was a mafia princess. She was a screenwriter. Her father ran Las Vegas, David and Drew Berman for Meyer Lansky back in the day. So he killed a whole bunch of people. Bottom line, I eventually go to prison. I escaped from prison. I end up on America's Most Wanted. When I went back in, I'm in supermax lockdown for 4 years. They transferred me state to state. And during this period, I decided to start taking college courses, university courses in writing. And I hooked up with a screenwriter in California, and she's since passed away. But my first book came out, and Nancy Grace covered it on her podcast, and then it exploded. I've been in the National Enquirer several times, New York Post. And so as I'm doing my time, I was a law clerk for many years. So even now, myself and my fiance, Kim Kardashian, we're the only reality TV stars who actively work with wrongful conviction cases. So we're working on a big California case right now. We're hoping to bring her in with us.
Did you say your fiance's Kim Kardashian?
No, no. Oh, my fiance is also a reality TV star. She's on my A&E. My A&E show is called Inmate to Roommate. It was offered to me just before I got out of prison. So Nancy Grace covers my first book on her podcast while I'm locked up. Her name to this day is now on the cover of my book. She's the queen of true crime. If you look at me up, it says I'm the only person known as the king of true crime now. So it's been surreal. This whole year and a half's been crazy. One thing after the other is starting to fall into place, but it's because I made myself prepared. I had mentors in my life and all that. And so one of the people I got involved with when I got out was Ciro DiPaggio. He's got a little bit of a past that he doesn't talk about much. He owned some nightclub back in South Beach in Miami years ago. And he had some trouble with the law. Bottom line is he's doing the right thing. He's making movies. He's helping people. And I intended to get out and do what you're doing, podcast, true crime channel. But you're talking to a guy who's never been on the internet before. I've never used social media before. I've never seen a smartphone. I've never seen a flat screen TV. I've been locked up a long freaking time. And so the last year and a half learning curve, now I'm on all these platforms all day long, learning about keywords, search engine optimization, all this stuff. And so I'm getting fairly decent at it. Ciro and I became friends. Ciro made the movie Mob King, which is streaming. It's called Mob King, and a really good movie with my friend Bruce Sosha. And so I covered it for my true crime channel, William Steele True Crime on YouTube, as you know. And his movie did really well. And so he says, look, if you'd like to be in some of my movies going forward, just let me know. I said, I'm not trying to be a movie star because I just want to build my true crime stuff up, inspirational stories, share my faith, and I want to use my past to help people, whether they're wrongfully incarcerated. I want to speak to college students. I want to speak to recovery groups. I want to speak to halfway houses. And now I'm also rolling into motivational speaking and a public relations firm. So things just started really falling into place, and I'm just rolling with it. Usually, how did I come on that movie? That's how I came across Ciro, and we have similar friends, similar backgrounds. He's making movies. That's one of the things I'm going to be rolling into myself, and he's including me in his projects. And it's a really cool movie. I could send you the trailer for it, but
already seen the trailer.
Good.
Yeah, it was a good trailer. Okay,
yep, it's very Miami Vice-esque. I think some of the same footage might have been used in it, but it gives you exact vibe as if you're Miami Vice, and it's just.
I saw how they took that poor guy on the boat, and he was like, enjoying it, and this other guy sneaking up behind him.
Yeah, well, the other guy getting his head bang on the thing. Now, Joseph D'Onofrio played in The Bronx Tale, and he played in Goodfellas. He's a little guy. But anyway, I met him at the premiere in New York when they first screened Silent Partners, and they still needed to add more footage. It wasn't finished yet. I met him there. I interviewed him on the red carpet for my true crime channel. And then when he heard there's going to be a movie about my life, he goes, I'm going to play you. And I said, you don't even know me. He's super famous. I said, you don't even know me. What do I do? He said, you do everything. And I said, dude, I used to steal jewelry, traffic cocaine, and guns. What's up with that? You want to play me?
Am I remember correct? You also knew Ghislaine Maxwell, right?
Yeah, I ran across Epstein at a jewelry salon in Palm Beach, and then ultimately I met her. And a lot of stuff happened down. I was in the Palm Beach house way before they became infamous, and I noticed inappropriate shit going on there, and I started extracting myself from that situation, and I wrote a book about it. So it's called Ghislaine Sensation.
That's
What's that?
Man, that's heavy.
Yep, I wrote a book about it. Anybody can find it. I appreciate the support, like you guys all do. You all have something you probably would like to promote. Amazon or on my website, williamsteeleauthor.com. And
You know, William,
my name's not up there. I don't know how to add it. Do you guys add that? Why was I supposed to do that?
yeah, William, we do have some talented people here. Phil DeSero over here, he's done a documentary which was shown on PBS, I believe, for a whole year, if I'm correct on that. He's also too an author, and he's known as El Guapo. Zandine Smith is known as Paranormal Soul Brother, and he was on the TV show WKRP Cincinnati.
Oh,
Yeah, and he's an entertainer down in San Francisco. He does these dances and everything and with the band.
I sing the blues now, Will. That's what I do.
Yeah. So we're all pretty well accomplished, and you already know who I am. So yeah.
I'm not accomplished. I'm a failure who straightened out his damn.
No, you're.
I realized that path I was on was a miserable path, and it was a path full of misery and loss.
I'm with you there, Will. You know, you could. I'm with you there. You can bump your head as many times as you want when you come to that understanding. You know, whatever you're trying to get, that's not the right glory, and it's all going to you. Then you know it's no good.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know what's kind of surreal about all this is, I've met so many good people. You guys all know who Meghan Markle is, right? I'm not saying she's a good person.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Her sister is one of my co-hosts, Samantha Markle.
Wow.
Who would have thought a guy getting out of prison would like have, Meghan Markle's sister as a co-host? She doesn't speak about her sister that much because they have litigation going on. Donald Trump's attorney, Peter Tickton, one of his best friends since childhood, they went to New York Military Academy together. He's a frequent guest. Every time we talk about anything to do with Donald Trump, especially if it has to do with stolen elections or ivermectin, YouTube shuts my channel down. YouTube shuts my channel down. Yeah, and I said, wait a minute. The president's attorney in his office has the video about the election being stolen in Georgia, and just because the authorities and the judges won't listen to it doesn't mean he doesn't have it in his office. He's an officer in the court in possession of this. He's also the attorney that was assigned to round up all the evidence regarding January 6th incident. Yeah. He's the one that collated all that evidence to be used. So it's just so weird. Like, you sit in prison, you think like the whole world hates you. Now I have like 18 million on TikTok, and I'm reading through comments. We love you, Bill. You're the funniest guy in the United States. You're inspirational. I'm just trying
like that on TikTok. That's cool.
I'm just trying. Well, all across all the views, like especially A&E locked down the name of the show. The second they named it Inmate to Roommate on A&E, now I'm Bill from season 1 for anybody who doesn't know. So it's streaming, and a few weeks ago they put it on Hulu. But on their hashtag for the show, the second they trademark a show, they lock down all the socials so nobody can get that name. Mm-hmm. On that hashtag, a fan said, "Hey, are you the real Bill from Inmate to Roommate? I just learned how to use Facebook Messenger or something."
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, that's me." He said, "Man, I'm in Alabama, and man, you're funny, you're inspirational. You're blowing up on TikTok." I said, "Man, what the hell is TikTok? I've been in prison half my life."
Yeah, what is TikTok? I know.
He said, "You got 9 million views and didn't know it. You're like one of the most famous people on TikTok. You didn't even know it." I said, "I didn't even know what it was until you just told me."
That's nuts, because it's hard. It's hit or miss. We were talking about how you can like it like that, but William, I got a story for you, man. A cat that lived up here in the mountains with me. He was my neighbor, and before he moved, we would talk about different things. But he was like, he did a ride. He did a bunch of bullets for about maybe like 10 years. He came out, had a son and his wife. Didn't want no problem. And he would talk to me every now and then. He said, "Hey, brother, you know what? You into that history and stuff." He said, "I want to ask you if you know who maybe this person is." And I was like, "Sure." And so he gave me the story where he was at this spot where it was all brothers there at this facility. And it was just him as the only white cat. So what happened was, he said that another gentleman came in. He said when this guy came in, it was another brother of his that came in, and he had paperwork stacked so high. He said he never saw anything like that. And the guy told him, he said, "Listen, you don't want any problems, anything, don't ask me any questions, don't ask me nothing about it." So he said that they started getting closer. They would be in the washroom playing checkers, whatever they would be doing, and they started talking. And he said, the guy they asked, well, who are you and who are you, and blah blah blah. And he goes, well, basically, I was probably the biggest. I was probably the biggest operator that ever really was. That got down like that. And he was like, well, what do you mean? Well, he said I would have Air Force One, and I could be going somewhere, and somebody tell me to turn around, and I have to go somewhere else. And he goes, what? He goes, is it true that that 0.1, he said that 1% control the world? He said, no. He said it's 0.1%. He said, and they'll make a phone call that will change the world. And he gave him an example how he was taking something one way, and he had to come back. And he goes, you know, I was looking at the TV, he said the other day, and I saw this guy talking, and he said, I'm thinking, with all that paperwork, how did he get out? How is he out a free man right now? How is he talking? This is the first thing he thought to himself. And he said, I'm going to tell you his name. I want you to tell me who it is. He said his name is Oliver North.
Yeah.
And he really didn't know the whole thing, the Iran Contra and anything about that, who the guy was. And he said that he told him, he said, hey, man, he said, there is no, he said, government. He said, everything is hollowed out. He said, we on some dark stuff. He said, if you got to murder, rob, cheat, lie, or steal, you better do whatever you got to do. He said, because everybody is for themselves. This is what he told him. And he said, they're on something dark. And he was scared. Now, this guy he's not like a chump. He's not one of them, not an easy scare. So it's just a story. I mean, nobody would, I mean,
there's definitely a lot of truth to that, man. It's a dirty, dark world out there, man. It just is. You know, there's a lot of I'm a Christian. I don't hide it. There's a lot of
see, I don't know what he was. Yeah, you might. I don't know. You know, but that's what we were talking about. But I'm a Christian as well.
Speaking about that, people who rule the world, Epstein rubbed elbows with some of the most powerful people in the world. And, we have an Epstein connection here on the show. I know you weren't great friends or buddies or anything like that, but you did happen to, meet them and actually were inside the Palm Beach estate. Now, this is a guy who was, he was a billionaire, right? I mean, wasn't he?
Yeah,
was like way up there. You would think that somebody with that much money and the connections he had, at the slightest, ripple in the news, he would have had somebody kill that girl who married the Australian and brought up the charges against him. I mean, how hard would it have been to spend $5-10 million to send the best hitman in the world down there and make sure that her brakes go out, her car crashes, her house burns down, something happens. If you have that much to lose, why would you let it ever get that far?
I don't think it was about anybody or him holding back, and I think a lot of people did ultimately turn up dead and still do. I'm in danger when I talk about the Clintons. I mean, and what I know about the Clintons and what I saw with my own eyes at that house. People still dying. I monitor my own movements. I have a camera on me at almost all times, two tracking devices. People know where I am at all times because I came out against the Clintons. You got to read the book to see what I'm talking about. But I did a show, Invest in Yourself. It was a small show. The guy put one clip of something I said that had never been out there before. He had like 4 million views in like a day. All of a sudden, I guess the Clintons or somebody shut that down, and then 2 people turned up dead, and I had to disappear for a little while. So it's a dirty, dark world. And I think what happened with him was things spun out of control at multiple places at the same time, and it was like whack-a-mole after a while. He couldn't put out all the fires.
Didn't put them out.
That's what I think is going on with him.
With you bring up the Clinton thing, which is fascinating. A lot of people, don't remember or maybe are too young to remember the scandals that mostly happened with him while he was governor of Arkansas, right?
Oh yeah, you got to read the book, The Clinton Chronicles, to know about those.
That's your book, right? The Clinton Chronicles?
Oh, no, I didn't write that book.
You didn't write that. What's the name of your Clinton book?
I didn't write a Clinton book. I wrote Ghislaine Sensation, New York, about Ghislaine Match.
Okay, so you saw Clinton at Epstein's estate?
I saw videos, and it was unmistakable. It was that, not one of them, both of them.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought maybe you were spent some time in Arkansas.
Okay. Mr. Smith, where are you located? You said the mountains. Where are you located?
Say Lake Tahoe,
Lake Tahoe. Okay, that's
California. Yeah. Yes, sir.
never been there. I used to live in Vegas. I got
Okay,
arrested. I
you
got
know what?
arrested in Vegas. Huh?
Vegas. Okay, well, no, Vegas actually is it's drier, but it's beautiful. It's just got more snow here. Look, it's a little cooler, definitely.
No,
But it's an ominous area. It's a beautiful area. You would love it. You got to come check it out. I mean, you definitely get a peace of mind.
I was out in Vegas in the '80s. I was doing a TV show called Crime Story with Dennis Farina, and
Okay, yeah, I remember that show.
I
Okay,
was I was at. They offered me Miami Vice because I was also the coke dealer on set at the time.
man.
It was a Michael Mann production. I was on a run from New York. I had just ran from South Florida because I hit Nick Navarro's house and stole cocaine out of his house that shouldn't have been there. Nick Navarro was Nick Navarro was the sheriff behind like the cops program and all that. He's in the original
Yeah.
episode, the white haired Cuban dude.
Yeah.
I hit his house by mistake, and how I knew it was I get back to my place and live with a bunch of Irish chicks. It was pretty wild times, and I looked through the stuff, and there's a card in his jewelry box. It's presidential seal. You open it up, it said, "Dear Sheriff Nick Navarro, thank you for your assistance on the South Florida Drug Task Force. Sincerely, President Ronald Reagan." And I was like, wait a minute. And I looked and I found his ID, and I'm like, holy shit, I did that, Sheriff.
Hey, William, I gotta ask you.
That's crazy.
You
And there was a
mentioned
quarter, and there was a quarter key of coke in his house, in his bedroom.
I get down there. Okay. Oh, Crime Stoppers.
Hey, William, I gotta ask you real quick. You were saying that your significant other was involved with the reality TV show.
Yeah, she's on Inmate to Roommate, season 1.
Oh, she's on Inmates to Roommates too.
She's on my show. So
Oh,
Gotta check
you
it
look
out.
at the comments on a lot of the stuff about me. Everybody's like, "Where's Mary? Where's Mary? Are you guys still together?" You know,
Didn't
Are
you
you
have a
married to
problem?
Oh,
I'm sorry. Didn't you have a problem with the people who were keeping you in their house?
that's an understatement. Listen, I watched my own show, and I can't because it's a reality show. I mean,
they locked them out. They locked them out.
my producer, Sharp Entertainment. I have a contract with them, A&E Network, and now Sony Pictures. Right? Everybody warned me that they'll try to set you up. They'll try to get you violated for ratings. I said, I'm not a dummy. I'm streetwise and I'm New York smart. I'm not falling for all these traps and getting violated for ratings. I told the producer, I said, come here for a second. You try to violate me for ratings, you better hide because I'm trying to stay out of prison. Anyway, he allowed me to be myself, like totally. And the show took off because I was living with 2 strict Seventh-day Adventists. She was my pen pal when I was in prison. I didn't know after 6 years of writing, she had a crush on me. My sisters had ripped me off for a significant inheritance in New York. So when I escaped from prison, they went into hiding. They thought I was going to kill them because I'm running with mobsters and Colombians in Florida. But they didn't realize I changed my life. But I really got into the word, and I was like, I'm not perfect. I really am pissed off at my sisters, but in reality, I forgive them. They're blood, and I don't wish any harm to come to them. But they did what they did. They stole about 800 grand from me, right? So they're to this day like afraid to deal with me. So I told my pen pal, I said, look, I can't go to my family. I can't go back to Florida for a while. Can I go to Indiana and stay with you guys? And yes, so that's the story. They let me stay there. She had a crush on me, kept trying to sneak into my bedroom. Her husband goes to work. She's wearing these tight leggings. And now these are ultra conservative Seventh-day Adventists, very active in their church. And she'd show up as soon as her husband went to work at 10 o'clock with tight black leggings on. I've been in prison 18 years. I've never seen a chick wearing those things. And they don't leave much to the imagination. As we all know, we're guys. They don't leave much to the imagination. So I'm like, Sean, what the hell are you doing dressing like that around me for? I said, what do you want me to do? Pull the covers back and say, come on, let's do this? I mean, because I would kid with her like that. She blushed. Oh, no, I'm just comfortable. I said,
I'm just comfortable.
but you don't dress like that around Mark, her husband. So it got crazy. Not all of that's on the show, but you can see the undercurrent, how she's trying to get at me, and I'm trying to like, hey, get the fuck away from me. Because I wasn't feeling
big.
it.
Woo,
And
man.
then they changed the locks to the house where William couldn't get inside.
I'm a locksmith. Those locks were, I'm not going to say the brand, but the brand that they were, I could pick with almost anything in a few seconds.
But you were decent enough not to do it though.
because even though it was my address on my license, my parole, my mail, I would have been legally okay. I didn't want the cops out there to, get some footage for the show. And I told the producer, he said, Bill, just pick the lock. And I'm like, Joe, I'm not going to pick the lock so you can get better ratings. He got nominated for an Emmy for something else. Joe's really good. Joe Russo, shout out. I love Joe. But I said, Joe, stop trying to violate me. I'm not picking the locks. I'm not breaking in. These people want to play games and lock me out in the hot sun. They knew I was flying in from California today. It cost me $400 to pay an off-duty taxi from Chicago back to Indiana to get here so I don't get late for parole. I'm not picking the locks. And then they got on the phone, Bill, just pick the locks. I'm like, Mark, I'm not picking your lock. Get over here, let me in the house. And I laid down on the front lawn. You saw that where I was laying down on the lawn waiting for them to come home. But yeah, they tried to violate me so many times. And this chick was on there, Alicia. She was on a show called Women in Prison. And she had a girlfriend. And now she's posing as this Christian. And I'm like, my girl found out that she had been on this other show. And I said, weren't you on Women in Prison? She gets out of prison, marries her parole officer, which is a huge violation for both of them. To this day, they're still married. And the whole show, on my show, she's trying to violate me so she can stay engaged in the series. And I'm like, I just did 18 years. Why are you trying to violate me? Because I write screenplays and books now and I'm trying to help people? What the hell is wrong with you? Your friends who I'm living with are nuts. You try living with them. They're completely nuts. They had a gigantic billboard on my wall. No, you must exercise, must pay tithes to our church. You must not use the internet. You must do this.
I remember that.
My fans a few weeks ago, and I should have thought of this a year ago, said, Bill, sell autograph rules. And I said, you know what? I should do that. As soon as I started advertising, I'm selling for $20 a pop left and right. They're buying the hell out of my signs. Bill's rules. And it was a big sign. I have it in my place where we're living. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. Whoever hasn't watched it here's got to watch it. I'll send you the link. You watch it.
I definitely got to check it out. I definitely got to check it out, man. I love reality TV anyway, so I know I'm gonna like it.
Julian Hagen.
Yeah, they made a sign of all the rules, and they wanted to post it on the door or on the wall.
On the wall.
And if I remember right, William took that sign and threw it away.
Well, I took it down gently because I knew that after filming, I wanted to save it as screen use. And I've had fans wanting to buy that thing. I still own that sign. The original one. Actually, when I get my permanent place, we're going to hang it upside down in the living room with some nice artistic lights on it.
Hey, you know what?
Well, you know what, man? When people don't realize though, the 18 years and what you did, like what you had to pay for that, they see it now in experience, but they don't realize, hey, everything that entailed that point that you got to, now. So I already know about that, but I mean, good for you to be able to bring it all together and give back, because that's what it's really all about. I mean, have you read the Book of Enoch?
Sounds very familiar, but I don't think there's one of the Bible books.
Okay, what I think you might like about it is before Christ had arrived, it was Enoch was God's man saying, hey, look, you can be the best person you can be. You can live and you can be that man. And even if a regular person can transcend, by helping other people, like you can get all the health you want. Like it says in Isaiah, when you help the next person, your health opens up like the morning light. You know that verse. I think it's like Isaiah 58:12 or something. But so it's a lot of benefits when you really start if you open up the book of Proverbs, even if you're not a Christian or, whatever you believe in, some of the gaming and some of the knowledge is like, priceless. Cliche phrases like, what does a man profit if he gains the world, but he loses his soul? That's like a cliche one, but there's so many that,
like it goes back to reaping what you sow. You could sow bad and get back bad all day long, but as soon as you turn it around and start doing good things, I have people saying, oh, I'm at this level now where you should charge to go on shows, especially if they have low views. And I'm like, you know what? If somebody throws me a few bucks, I'm not going to refuse it, but I'm also not going to charge because I was also at the low end. And I know, I'd love to have a popular guest on my show. Who wouldn't? But I have people like, I'll give you an example. I'll even say his name, John A. He told me he'd come on free, then I'd get this big runaround, then he'd get hit with $1,500. I said, listen, dude, I got more fans than you. And your story's been told 1 million times. Mine's brand new. I'm right out of the gate. I've asked you as a brother in Christ, you're welcome to come on my show. We could talk about fentanyl, the death of your daughter, your background, how you turn your life around. That's it. I want to tell inspirational stories. So just people like that, man. That I have no patience for.
Thank you for being on our show. With what you just said, we truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no.
I know I spoke to you once before when you were on the sanitarium. Thank you for being on that show too.
I know you look familiar in the shadows there.
Yeah. Well, I remember you telling us about how you escaped from jail and then were apprehended, and it was a riveting story. But after what Zandine just said, it kind of hit me, and I'm sure you've probably had a long time to think about it. But you had almost 2 decades incarcerated. To lose that amount of time, it must feel like, especially with the changes in technology and everything else, it must have felt like, the world had changed so much. Could you tell us a little bit about what was that like stepping through that gate into this new world? What hit you at once? How were you feeling?
First of all, I got out in the middle of COVID, so I was white as a ghost because we were locked down for a year and a half, eating eggs. Eggs, 5 eggs in the morning, 5 for lunch, 5 for lunch, 5 for breakfast, nothing for dinner, and locked down. So I was white as a ghost. I hadn't had a haircut in about a year. I looked like crap. You'll see how I look in episode 1 because I hadn't even had a haircut yet of Inmate's roommate. And you'll see, man, that dude looks tired. He looks pale. His hair's off, And so it was surreal. I am obviously you're living in a box. And I had been locked down for a year and a half. And a few years before that, I was locked in solitary for 4 years because I escaped from prison. So to be out around things, the model of the cars, the way people are dressing, being around, women and people and kids, or, just everything that you never see in prison, unless you have a visit and you see somebody once in a blue moon. Technology, the models of the cars. Like I drive a beautiful older Cadillac, but for me, it's brand new because it came out when I was in prison, and so I love my black Caddy. They think I'm a mobster from New York with my black Caddy, but it's just what it is. But they're like, well, the Italians and the mobsters are driving different cars now in New York, Bill. And I'm like, I don't give a rat's ass. I like the black Caddy.
That makes sense.
But listen, we stopped at a store. The producer says, they gave you a card to take your money off your account. Go use the ATM in the convenience store, and we're going to film you struggling with it. I said, I'm not that stupid. I think I can figure it out pretty quick. I'm not completely stupid. They had ATMs before I went in. But then there was a Bitcoin machine. So he's over there. You guys might know what the Osmo is, that little small camera they could hide. It's got a pivoting head. Well, they smuggled that onto prison property. They weren't supposed to be filming on prison property. Then they had that in the store filming me, and then the other cameraman came in. And now customers freak out, reported us to the owner of the store. Oh, they're filming people using the thing. And I said, it's a reality show. I'm cool with them filming me using it. And then the producer couldn't explain it, and the guy was like from Pakistan or something. Get out of my store! You can't film people using an ATM. I said, Joe, you've been doing reality TV for 2 decades. Don't you ask for permission before you film somebody's store?
Did it funny. Joe,
the problem with that stuff is sometimes it's easier to ask for forgiveness than to beg for permission.
That was his theory, but yeah, we got screamed out a few times. I heard that. He just whips out cameras and starts going. He says, hey, Bill, go over there and see how you interact, ordering something, whatever, just until he gets something that I'm perplexed about. Like when I went to you asked what things changed. I never saw a smartphone, never saw social media. The network, well, I shouldn't say that. Let's just say somebody provided a card and said, get whatever phone you want. I wanted a high-end iPhone because I want to make movies and shows and documentaries. These people I'm living with took me to a pawn shop and got me a used Samsung phone. I was so pissed off. I don't know if you remember that scene. I go in there and I said, hey, I've never seen one of these before. I'm just going through the motions because I'm just livid because the money was there for the phone I wanted. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, it's all new to me, even the Samsung little slick little teeny phone was nice. So I'm asking the guy, look, what is it, like lessons online? How do I learn? How do we even turn this thing on? I'm like, you might as well hand a freaking caveman, I don't know, just a smartphone and say, go ahead and use it, because I've been living in a cave for 18 years. So he was trying to explain it a little bit, and Mark was with me. And I says, yeah. He says, how come you don't know how to use a smartphone? I says, oh, I just got out of prison. I've been locked up 18 years. And he went like this because he didn't know the whole deal yet while we were filming there, the owner. And I says, yeah, and pawn shops usually lock up tight when I'm around.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
I says I was known as a pretty prolific jewel thief.
And on a serious note, William, I mean, I just want to chime in what Phil was talking about. Doing 18 years, I did have an uncle that he was out of Pelican Bay for a long time. Like he went into 18 for some, got out in his 30s, late 30s. When he came out, briefly, he wanted to watch a bunch of movies and catch up with his girls, just new girls, obviously. And he went back in. So my thing is, like, I think it's a blessing for you to be able to get into something. How do you maintain, staying out? I mean, is it your faith? What did you credit that with? Because I know it's easy because I couldn't believe that he went back. I didn't understand that at the time.
Well, keeping it real, it's no secret. It wasn't my first rodeo, so it was not my first time being locked up. And I had a hard head, and I had developed years ago a problem with that. And so a lot of these stupid decisions, and the people I was hanging with, thinking I'm going to get the better of them or find a way to get to their money or rip them off, ended up with me being around some really freaking notorious people that are infamous now. I mean, I can name a couple of others in California, but how did I stay out? I have to credit my faith more than anything else. I just got sick and tired.
Okay.
Nonviolent crime, 18 years. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much over it. And then not being able to talk to my mom, my sister's ripping me off and they told her I was dead. Yeah, there's been a lot. It's when you get older, you feel it a lot more. The loss is a lot more serious, and you can't recover. Like I gained over 100-something pounds. I still can't lose weight because there's two things you miss when you do a lot of time as a guy. One is good food, and the other one, we all know what that is, right? So,
yeah, brother. Yeah.
William, like when you're doing time, what are some of the notables that are infamous inmates that you actually ran into while in prison?
And or jail, I would say one of them was a guy that in New York they called the South Shore Rapist. He was a real piece of crap, breaking into houses and raping a whole bunch of women. Anyway, the guards back then in New York, he was coming back from court and he was changing out, getting out of his suit back into his jail clothes, and everybody was wanting to get at him. And the guards like opened the doors and said, "You guys got 5 minutes. Get in there, do what you're gonna do, and get back to yourself." They basically let him kill that dude. He didn't die, but they beat him to where he was hospitalized.
They let him get out of him.
So him. Then there was another guy who actually was one of the most decent guys I've ever met in prison. He just had a horrific crime, and he did it. I'm never going to say for good reason because there's never a good reason to kill anybody. But he was a guy that was adopted out of the Ukraine, and he's in Florida in that prison. And he was like 15 years old. Horrible story in Ukraine. And these fake monks in South Florida were bringing these young boys over, and they were running this monastery with some nuns, partially supported by the Catholic Church, but there was some question about that. And they had been raping these young boys for years. So he finally had enough of it and reported it to a nun who slapped him, mocked him, didn't take him serious. He stabbed her 91 times. So his name's Michael. I forget the last name right now, but it was really a high-profile crime in Florida. I happened to be locked up with him for a while. One of the nicest, most humble guys you'd ever meet. He says he deeply regrets doing it, but he just snapped. He went to her for help to stop the abuse and save all these other boys. And nothing was ever done to these people. They relocated to North Carolina. So there's that. Just different mobsters, stuff people you hear about, you see. I can't think of any big names right now. Derek James. Derek James was he was known as the Spider-Man burglar. I was a professional burglar. There's three of us that at one time in Palm Beach County were in the same unit. George Alvarez, and he was a Cuban guy. He was in Cuban intelligence. He came to the United States. He was in jail in Cuba. They got rid of him, I think, in Mariel. But he became a super thief. This guy hit the Ford family, Kathleen Ford, for like $8 million in gold and jewelry. The Fazul Sugar family in Palm Beach for like another $5 million. He was killing it with burglars the same time I was. Derrick James, another notorious burglar. Derrick James was known as Spider-Man. He owned a bunch of pawn shops in South Florida. He founded a church, all kinds of stuff. He was former Special Forces paratrooper, big, fit, very intelligent black man. He would scale the condos here on the ocean, not far from where I'm at, and go in the sliders that were open, wipe them out, go back down the same way, and go home. They figured out who he was. They put a tracking device on his vehicle. I wrote his testimony story for him for a while. He was trying to convince people of his innocence, but I was a law clerk for many years, and I know how to, I know how to play the game. I know the bullshit, and you can kind of figure out people are lying to you. And I said, Derek, you're about as innocent as I am. We were ripping off everything that moved in South Florida all the time.
Everything.
There was
you can write a book about all the.
They had a
book about all the.
I just put out a burglary book. It's called Vault Heist Book. I just put that one out. So there was a time Palm Beach County Jail put us all in the same housing unit, and I said, "Isn't that something?" The three most notorious burglars in the entire United States are currently, and I made it out. They got sentenced, and I went to Palm Beach, which is like just 10 minutes from where I am now. I'm right near the Epstein mansion again, which has been torn down. I went to film there a few months ago because there's a mark I left inside one of the walls, and I wanted to go beg the owners to get in and film it to prove that I was there and have some more evidence. And I went there, it had been demolished already. So I did some footage in front of the Epstein place. But anyway, so I'm back there again right now. So I get out, I go to Palm Beach, I get postcards of like the biggest mansions on Palm Beach, like, $50 million mansion. And I send it to George in the Palm Beach County Jail. He's the notorious burglar from Palm Beach, and I'm one of them. And I say, "Dear George, having a good time, wishing you were here." Picture of that.
Man, you rubbing it in. He's like, man.
Hey, you know what I used to do to guys I didn't like when I got out? I would go to the same things, like the gift stores. How you see the sexy chicks on the beach with the bikinis and send postcards to your people, right? Well, they got the buff guys and the Speedos and all that for the chicks, right? Or the whatever, the gays. So I would get ones like that, right? These big buff dudes wearing almost nothing on the beach, and I would write some guy in prison that was like giving people a hard time. Let's say his name was Sam. "Dear Sam, I really miss you. I'm enjoying South Beach so much. Doesn't he look like the guy we had the threesome with?" So at mail call, this big tough thug in prison is getting a picture that all the guards read the back of it. They did before they gave it to him.
He's like, "Man, what you sending me this shit for, man?" Oh my God.
I had all kinds of underhanded ways to get back at people that mess with me in prison. But I was the law clerks. Nobody bothered me. I don't care if they were.
That's the cold one right there.
That's like God's salvation. But nobody bothers you because I'm not going to even name the gangs. The head of this gang is cooperating with the authorities and come to me and said, "Hey, if you tell anybody, I'll kill you. But I made a deal. I testified against my homeboy in a murder, or I gave evidence, and they reneged on my deal, and I got 20 years. And they used to call me in New York. New York, if you tell anybody, I'm going to kill you. But how do I force them to give me the deal?" I said, "The only way to do it is to sue them, and that's going to be public, and then your own team's going to kill you."
Yeah.
But anyway, it would be hands off.
Damn.
It would be hands off of me because they would be like, "Hey, leave New York alone, man. He's working on my case." Yeah.
I got a question for you. Sorry, Paul. When I was my grandfather grew up in the Bronx, and I grew up in Jersey. So my grandfather told me about growing up about this school for criminals, and he mentioned it being a locksmithing school. And so when you mentioned the school that you went to at the beginning of the podcast,
New York School, that's where I went.
And he used to joke because he used to hear commercially. He goes, "Yeah, that's the school that makes you a better criminal."
I graduated. They had 3 courses, actually 4. They had the whole electronic security course. I think it was 3 months or something like that. And it was a trade school. And then they had like 3 months to learn locksmithing, like a 2-week component that taught you safes and vaults. Safes and vaults included how to manipulate, by touch into any safe lock, how to drill them. I mean, emergency opening techniques, lock picking, installations, this, that. All of them I graduated top of my class.
Yeah.
Within months, I was already doing burglaries.
That's amazing. That's
Man,
amazing. It
but
brought back some memories when you said that.
like my son would say, no cap. Like these kids nowadays, when they say I'm not lying, they go, no cap, no cap. But I believe it, man. You know, the other thing I was gonna say is the neighborhood I lived in San Francisco, this ghetto, it was like the one dude, when you don't have your father there, you got like older males indoctrinating you, you know, exposing you to different stuff. So it's like I had an older partner I would run with. He had me sharpen the popsicle sticks. In those days, the windows you could open them. You know, the little side window, the triangle window. You had a little knob. We would get into the
On the
side of the
cars.
car with the popsicle stick like that. So we started that. Then we went to going in the houses. But the thing we got in the paper for was a gyrocopter. It was a gyrocopter. Now, what we gonna do with a gyrocopter? We didn't know how to fly it or anything, but it was chained up right next to the Jimi Hendrix Foundation Church. So that's the only reason you saw it. We used to go there. They had this church up on Haight and Buena Vista. So we'd go up there and trip, and they had Jimi Hendrix, the one guitar there, and he had this gyrocopter there. But see, it was all fun and games. We didn't really think about it because we were just young. But whoever you run with, sometimes that's what you get into. You know, you
get the gyrocopter, it's not worth anything. But if you got that Jimi Hendrix guitar, that's some.
Now we never, you know what? We didn't get that one, but somebody did.
I'm gonna keep it real because I talked about this on my show. Right here in Boca Raton is a museum. It's an art school now, not even a half a mile from this house I'm in, like literally up the street. Back in the 90s, it was the Boca Raton Museum of Art, and it's a wing that was donated by some dentist in New Jersey with all his super high-end, expensive old masters artwork, millions. My art fence, he named the paintings he wanted. He said, "I'll give you $1 million cash, bring them to my house." This thing was so easy to break into back then. I went and I cased it a few times at night. I got the police frequency because I used to use scanners, police radios. Got the locks down. I've been in and out of the building a few times. I could have took all 7 of these paintings in like probably under 3 minutes. Right in the week I was going to do it, somebody took a brick. There was an orchid show there. Somebody took a brick, threw it through the glass, stole some orchids for their mother because they were drunk and it was like Mother's Day or some bullshit. I go to jail a few weeks later. Well, after that, they locked it down, added securities, added bars. I go to jail and I meet this kid. I'll even say his name, Joseph Bolero. And he said, "Yeah, I lived by the Boca Museum of Art." He said, "I stole some orchids out of there." I said, "That was you?" I was getting ready. They did it for $1 million of art, and they increased fucking security because you stole some flowers. And that building today is an art school, and I just noticed 2 days ago the new museum is closer to the beach, and it's the size of a freaking Walmart with no windows, virtually no doors, no real way to get in. I mean, no comment, but the average person couldn't get in. And I'm like, holy crap, they went from that little one-story antiquated 50s building to this massive box that they have now. Really nice museum, like a world-class museum. Yeah, so this is a bunch of weird stories like that.
Boca used to be a small.
William, I got to ask you something. Okay, and you know everything about prison life, so I know definitely you have the answer. In 1979, when I was an Arthur Murray's dance instructor, I was teaching this guy named Luis Rodriguez and his wife how to dance, disco dance. And about I taught them for about a whole year. And then 5 months after training them how to dance, Luis Rodriguez killed 2 CHP officers on this causeway going to Davis, California. And when he was imprisoned, he was making websites. How was he able to do that?
The only way I can imagine, if he had smuggled in contraband cell phones and knew what he was doing. There's plenty of people with him. I've seen plenty of them when I was in prison. The officers bring in most of the drugs and cell phones, all that stuff. They make a lot of money doing it, especially females. You'll see a female start working there. Most of these prisons are in the middle of nowhere in the sticks, in depressed areas. So it brings, the local economy is supposed to improve, but they'll go from where, not having makeup or hair done and crappy shoes. And a few weeks later, they're wearing diamond studs. Their hair's done. They're wearing expensive perfume, brand new, $200 sneakers. in their prison uniform. And you're like, but then you realize she's been bringing dope in, or she's tricking in the prison, and these poor women go from, bringing all this dope in, and now all of a sudden they're able to buy a house. But these people can't keep their business to themselves. They flash. And the guys who are getting it in, or getting with a woman, tell their friends, and eventually they tell somebody. And next thing you know, her mugshots, and I've seen that happen many, many times. So how do they get that stuff in? Corrupt officers. I often thought about this. If I could get a job somewhere that didn't care about a criminal history, I get a job with a prison system, find out what guy who's moving and shaking with the most money on his books, and say, here's an ounce of that, here's this, here's that. Send the 50 grand here, send it there, whatever. Don't ask me for any more. As soon as it's gone, I'll hit him, break him off some more. Part of me was saying I could do that for about a year and then quit. I already know you're going to get busted eventually. But because I know about 30 different ways to get it in. These days, they're even using drones to get it in. They're dropping dope, guns, handcuff keys into the prisons.
Man. Let me ask you, I would be remiss if we didn't ask, and I bet you they want to ask you this as well. Paranormal in the prison. Now, I know aliens or prisons with ghosts or demons, anything like that. Like, number one, if it was that real, some people are like, how come I can't be free? But somebody's got to be having some kind of bad experience or some kind of supernatural that transform them, in addition to God, because God we know is transformational. But I'm wondering about the paranormal. Any experiences like that? Anybody tell you anything, or you see anything like that? Any abductions?
If you watch my show, you'll know that I make jokes about almost everything. So the joke about that kind of question would be, yeah, the people haunting that place is definitely the pedophiles. They're the creepiest people you ever want to meet in your life. They're creepy. They're scary. They're devious. They're tattletale on everything. They're scared to be alive. Yeah, so they're haunting the place, so to speak. But
I can tell you right now.
Demon, that's a form of a spirit. I mean, a lot of people will recognize that as a demon, not even trying to get mystical. They would say, hey, you know what? That's a demon.
Hey, but, Zandine, every single prison and every military installation is haunted. And I've investigated all types of military installations and some prisons. And the reason why there's hauntings over there, because of the suicides, the murders, military installation, training accidents, everything. So, yeah, all those places with all that negative activity that surrounds it, you do have paranormal activity. And I get reports from, in my articles, from soldiers saying, hey, I'm over here at Fort Benning, Georgia, and we keep on seeing a ghost in the barracks. I've had reports from prisons. I did investigations. I almost became a correctional officer over at Vacaville Prison, and then I signed up for the Army. And by the time Vacaville Prison contacted me, I was already headed for Korea. So, but I have some correctional officers in my family, and they told me there's a lot of paranormal activity. I have two relatives working at Folsom Prison, and they said, Folsom Prison is very haunted. Things move around. They hear disembodied footsteps, everything. So, yeah, they're haunted.
I believe that it's a lot of stuff's going on. I have to take everything in the context of my faith, and I don't know if fully you guys believe just yet. I do know there's a lot of paranormal, discussions here. As a Christian, my belief is I'm covered in the blood. I don't give a damn what those people, the demons or ghosts around me, want to do. I can say, get behind me in Jesus' name, because there's enough things to worry about in prison without me worried about what's going to grab my foot when I step off the bed in the middle of the night in prison. You know what I mean? Not to make light of it, but I agree with you that
no.
In those places of misery, like Pilgrim State Hospital in New York, where my mother was mentally ill, the horrible things went on there. What's the other the other one in the big one, Sandhurst or something like that?
Yeah,
all those places.
The one that Geraldo exposed, right?
Yeah, so all kinds of horrible stuff in those places. So yeah, I mean, I believe something's going on. Do I know if it's supernatural as far as like the dead?
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because Phil actually he asked me a question. I mean, about I was telling him about sometimes when me and Paul would do investigations, my perspective is like this. I hold it up in terms of Samyaza, one of the fallen angels in the pantheon, I believe trumps all the other stuff. Like the rich people don't go to Zeus's grave. They don't go to Hare Krishna's grave. They go to Nimrod's grave. And who was Nimrod? He was the trusted hunter of God. Now, what is he famous for with these wicked people? He's famous for deviating and doing his own technology. What did he do? He used what the fallen angels had showed the people as they had sex, and they already planned that in heaven to come down and do that. It didn't just happen on earth with them seeing the women and think they're pretty. No, it happened. It was a plan. So that technology that separated them, they came down with stuff. It had power, but no authority. So like some Reiki, some yoga, all these different things, people are doing it. But if you ask them what the source is, they won't know anything about Samyaza. But in Enoch chapter 62, God said, he said, damn you, Samyaza. He said, you with me before let there be light. You are the chief of the tens of the thousands. You of all people, you gave him the solution to sorcery, grinding, signing roots and herbs. Now, when he told him, yeah, you gave him the solution to sorcery. People don't realize how real sorcery and how real these things are to your face. So there are other people that realize the forces that you're against when even you don't know. But then, like you said, Jesus in the New Testament, when he was exorcising demons, the first thing that you needed as far as that's concerned is an absolute belief in the heart that it already happened. But you have to be believing for real to be able to exorcise that demon. That's all the authority you needed. But yeah, so to what you stand as far.
A lot of things you discussed are like above my pay grade, but I just have such a strong faith that, man, there's enough terrible and horrifying and terrifying things in prison, if you allow it to be that way, for me to start even going down that path and taking, like, there's a pipe chase. You're in an old prison, for example, and there's a pipe chase behind you, like in the movies, they all escape through there or whatever.
William,
are there noises in there at nighttime? Yeah, I don't know what it is, but if I spend time thinking about it, I might not get through the night. So I'm like, okay, all right, the pipe's leaking, or people are trying whatever.
Hey, check this out. Check this out, you guys. Over at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary in Tennessee, James Earl Ray, the guy who assassinated Martin Luther King, his ghost is over there. After his death in 1998, there was numerous reports of paranormal activity that they believe originated from James Earl Ray. And they heard strange noises, sightings of James Earl Ray, his apparition. And yeah, they say that James Earl Ray, his restless spirit still haunts that penitentiary. And another case is Al Capone, who was in prison at Alcatraz. Capone was going crazy because he was haunted by a ghost in his cell. And he was reporting haunting phenomenon, including hearing ghostly banjo music, which he believed was a ghost.
He also had syphilis, right?
Yeah, well, that's true too, Phil.
It might be his guilty conscience for all the people he killed. Like, he's like, man, because maybe his faith is weak, and he's like, oh my God, I got to see these people again, or I'm going to hell. When people have a chance to slow down, they might not on the surface and in front of you admit that they're dealing with some shit. But privately, they're like, man, what did I do? And how many people did I hurt? And how am I going to pay the price one day for that?
Yeah.
And Al Capone went crazy because he had syphilis, and that ate up his brain.
He could have added to it. William, when you say about above the pay grade, reason why it's cool, I was sharing the information with you because me as a Christian, I went to Catholic school my whole life. I went to a Jesuit high school, but I was raised a Baptist. So I had all these books and things coming at me, but never really tripped on what it was saying, how real it was archaeologically, anything. But it got more powerful the more you take a deeper dive. Like somebody, a brother told me, he said, you know what? I'm like a surfer. I keep going deeper into the waters, and every now and then I get off my board and I dive in. He said, I keep coming up with stuff. But if you look at Babylon, so we all know the city Babylon. So reason why it's kind of cool, because you can always see society how it turned away from God, doing the same thing. Sex, drugs, and music literally has always been around. Because if you look at Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, he would have people of the moon coat, which at that time was the man, not the woman part of it. It was the man that had the moon coat. And they had the Baal coat, the ball, which was a sexual fertility coat. So you have basically two gods that were allowed to be worshipped in the midst of our God. Okay. And so God said, I don't like syncretism. I don't like people worshiping me with your methods, with this Elohim that can't do nothing for you. This is fake. So I'm trying to tell you guys, don't do this. This is why the city is going to go down. So Daniel came to Nebuchadnezzar and told him, look, you got silver now, but when you finish, you're going to have dirt. You're going to have clay because all this is going to go down. Now, Nebuchadnezzar had a feast of 70,000, which archaeologically, Francois Duplessis went over there and proved there's 70,000 placemats of service. And then they had one person for each person. So that's like a feast of like 140,000. So on a ground level, people don't realize these people were taking it to levels, but the correlation is they had music to get people in the mood to do things, have sex. They had different foods. The same thing they do now. If you have ambassadors come, to any meeting, different countries come together and the way they host it. So the things that were going on in Babylon and why that city was destroyed, the same thing is what, I mean, I'm just saying religiously speaking. So even not being above your pay grade, you could see the parallels of the sex, the drugs, and the rock and roll. Like when I was telling you about that Sam Yeza guy,
absolutely,
those guys had a palace where they were having sex, doing any position you could think of, machines, anything you could think of, and the women were coming there. They told them come here with no clothes, no makeup. And they told them how to go in the wild and grind up roots, cocaine, smoke weed, and come with hallucinogens. So when they had sex, it was 3 times the aphrodisiacal effect. So this stuff been going on. So yeah, when you dive deeper, you'll be like, wow. And because you already picked a side. So that's beautiful.
That's something that you learn in prison. Like from my case, I studied a lot of faiths, but I just narrowed down. Look, I'm a Christian. That's it. No more denominations. I grew up Catholic. I went to private schools. I was an altar boy. I went to private Catholic school.
Okay.
So me and you, similar backgrounds. There's a biblical archaeology magazine I used to read. It was around chaplain's office sometime. Science more and more and archaeology more and more is proving the Bible to be true. And the mainstream secular world doesn't want to see that, like coins and rulers that were mentioned in the Bible, but there's been no record of them everywhere. Now they're finding coins with that person's name on it. All the archaeology is proving out what the Bible has said is true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. A lot of people, when they say, hey, well, you know what, your Bible has been said in the Sumerian tablets, or it's been said before. But then you can point to them about stuff like Cyrus. 200 years, Isaiah had already prophesied 200 years before. God said, hey, look, I'm going to use Cyrus as a shepherd to lay the foundation. Now, what was Cyrus? Cyrus was in the Mithraism, where he believed in Ahura, Benazet, Ahura, Mazda, and Mithras. It was a trinity already. But ironically, even though they believed in what they believed in, they had a king Josephus who prophesied, said, we're going to open the door for the Israelites' faith. This is all, historical, like stuff that's really interesting when you say, what was it really happening? Because I'm like you. I want on a deep dive to see what can be verified and where does the money go? Like what do these elite people, like who do they really think is real? So like I said, they go to Nimrod's grave. His mama and him are there with a big giant tree. And so they salute him for making his own way of going against God. I thought that was interesting. So they at least know who the other side is. They just chose a side. That's where I started from.
I think we're getting past the mark here.
Anyway,
my dog is trying to make a bunch of noise like they want to go out.
Yeah. William, you got anything you want to promote?
Sure. Go to my website, williamsteeleauthor.com. I have books available there. One about the wealthiest serial killer in American history, Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst. And it's on Amazon, William Steele. My name is not up on the screen. I don't know if I forgot to type it or what. But
we're going to watch the show, man. I want to set the timer for it. What up? Because I'm out here on the West Coast. What times? Because I want to check it out. Is it
Inmate to Roommate? I'm in season 1. I can send you guys the free link for it, or go to A&E streaming or Hulu streaming.
Okay.
Inmate to Roommate. I'm Bill from Inmate to Roommate.
And if you do get Williams' book, don't do what they did on Inmates or Roommates when he gave it to that woman that he was living with, and she goes, "Oh, I threw it away." Do you remember that, Williams? Do you remember that?
She did because it was profanity in it. Guess what? She did me a favor because my fans were so resentful about that and knew I was trying to earn a living, getting out of prison, writing books, and doing what we're here all doing basically. That they were so resentful that all my fans said, "Hey, let's everybody buy Bill's book," and my sales skyrocketed because of that. So
I know that was if you want to hurt an author, all you have to do is throw away their book.
Oh yeah. Somebody's going to be curious. Oh, the other thing I'd like to promote, I have a true crime channel also on YouTube, William Steele True Crime. I have multiple co-hosts. Louis B. Ballesteri was an organized crime detective in New York City. He made one of the biggest cases against the Gambinos and the Genovese family. He is Mafia Monday co-host. My channel is William Steele True Crime on YouTube and Rumble. Please subscribe. I want to build my numbers up over there. And then Samantha Markle, Meghan Markle's sister, she's occasionally on. Frank Lordy, former commissioner, got set up after he won election, fake fraudulent charges, went to prison, got out. He's been exonerated now. He's my other co-host, my fiance Mary. We do wrongful conviction Wednesdays. We look at cases of people that are wrongfully incarcerated. We try to reach out for them, or they reach out to us and their families, and we try to help them and shed a spotlight on their cases. And we're rolling into public relations and always looking for collaboration and interesting guests. If anybody wants to be a guest, you have an inspirational story, something true crime related maybe, you're more than welcome to come on.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're a great guest. Thank you so much for being on. And when this show is all completed, Phil's going to be doing some editing, getting this all together. I'll send you the link to the show.
Feel it fast, man. Feel it fast.
You guys are gonna laugh. I don't know if we're still live or still on.
Yeah,
We're still on, yeah.
I actually announced that I'm running for president in 2028, by the way. In this country, a convicted felon can run for president. I have millions of my fans saying, "Bill, I'll vote for you." So who knows? You know why? Because one of my spiels will be, and I'm gonna polish it a little. You gotta watch my show to see I'm a little funny and a little sarcastic. But one of them's gonna be like, "Vote for me. You know I was a liar. You know I was a thief. You know I was a womanizer. I'm not lying to you about my past. You know what you're getting yourself into. Vote for me, and not these guys who are going to lie to you and tell you that they're not into any of that." You know?
I'd vote for the Man of Steel.
There you go. You know what? Like Eminem in 8 Mile. You know when he got on stage and he put himself down so they couldn't dog him out anymore. Remember that? He said, "Yeah, it was a good trailer fox." Now what do you have? I admit all that stuff. Now what? Right? Got no ammunition.
Just throw it out there before they can.
Exactly.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Truly appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
You guys are awesome, man. And I look forward to coming back.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, it was some good shit, man.
God bless
Have
you.
a good night.
God bless.
Nice meeting you guys.